Okay, back for another video, and this of course is going to continue on talking about being a contract psychologist. And I decided to do a video today on the pros and cons of that. Now, this is going to be subjective to individuals, right? I mean, what I might view as a pro, you might view as a con. Some of them might, be a pro and a con. But I did make a list, and you'll see me looking down quite a bit, but I did make a list of some that I wanted to talk about because I felt like if you're going to tell people about contracting as a psychologist, you want to include some pros and cons on that. Now, some of this can also apply to contract nurses, contract dentists, contract whatever it is you're doing as a professional contracting. A lot of the pros and cons are probably going to be the same. All right, so here goes. Let's start with the pros of being a contract psychologist. So the first one I came up with was meeting new people. Now, anyone who knows me knows that I'm an introvert. I'm not really big on putting myself out there to meet a lot of people, but I have found that a big pro for me, interestingly, has been meeting various different people. I got so used to working with, a group of people for a couple years and getting used to them, and they becoming like a work family. And what I've found with contracting is it's actually a lot better to just meet various different types of people across, just different work spaces, It just makes it a lot easier to even make new friends if that's what it is you'd like to do. So yeah, it's been interesting, and you meet various different people, different personalities. Depending on what agency you're with, they would pay for your hotel stay, your flights to and at I guess into your contract, and at the end of your contract going back home, and your car rental. I've met two other contractors where I'm at now, and they have car rentals that their agency pays for. We're not even with the same agency, so it just really depends. I've also ran into agencies where it is they pay for some of your contracts. Depending on the contract, they'll pay for your room and board, and other contracts they don't. It really just depends on where it is you're being contracted, and also who your agency is and what they do. You have the ability to negotiate your rate most of the time, because they might say, well, this might pay, I don't know, $90 an hour. Doesn't mean that you have to accept that. You can say, well, I was hoping to come in at 100. What can I do? So for example, the current contract that I'm on, I was able to negotiate an additional $10 an hour rate on top of my existing rate, for a huge bump in my pay, by simply just bringing my car. Again, that'll be subjective to you and what it is you do. Rates vary. I've met people who are on the master's level that make, $60 an hour. I've met people on the master's level who make $70 an hour. On the PhD level, I've met folks who make $100 an hour. So they work 10-hour days, so they're making $1,000 a day. And then depending on where you go, let's say you're in California, that might actually be, I have a fly in here. If you see a fly flying around, that might actually be more like, get those windows down. That might actually be more around $150, $160 an hour on a 10-hour day. So rates can vary depending on geographic location. Okay, let's see. Another pro, higher pay. On average, you are going to come in making double, if not triple, what it is the average employee doing the exact same job is making, hands down. Now, I'm pretty old school. I remember when I first entered the workforce, way back in the day. Like, I'm talking about, early 2000, late 1990s. I remember contract work being different, but I also grew up in New York. So, you know, I remember if you were a contractor, your aim would be to come in and actually come in much lower than the average employee in hopes of being hired on so that you can get the benefits and the higher pay and all of these different things. Like, for example, contract would probably take like 50%, okay, of what it is you made. Now, granted, this was on a much lower level. I wasn't a psychologist back then, and so contract work, like say as a CNA or home health aide or that sort of stuff, they'd take 50% of your pay. And that was the business model of contracting back then, unless there was something I didn't know. Today I'm seeing a huge wave of contracting, contract work, subcontractors, that sort of stuff. And it's quite the opposite, where it is you are making, again, double, if not triple, what it is you would make. So let me put this in perspective. When I was working for the state of Colorado as an unlicensed psychologist, and I'm still unlicensed today, my hourly rate of pay, when you do the math, even though I was a salaried employee, when you do the math from a 10-hour day, came out to be roughly around between 40 and 42 an hour. Today I am more than double that rate when it is you look at what it is I'm making an hour in comparison as a contractor. Now, obviously, there are some differences that I'll cover in cons with that. One of the most obvious ones, of course, is you don't get benefits. You kind of, you have that, but I'll cover that more in cons. So yeah, you have a higher rate of pay as a pro, which I think is really in this economy. And right now we're in the end of 2024, going into 25. I'd rather see all my coins than give 11% of it away for one thing and then another 25% of it away for taxes. So I just want to say that. Another pro I listed for me was constant change. Constant change in your work environment, your co-workers, the location that you're in. For some contractors, you can have some consistency where it is you're on the same job site, maybe even for years. But the reality is, if they don't have a need for you where it is you go, there's a good chance that you can get uprooted from whatever site you're at and be placed at another site. You'll find this to be the case if you work in the VA or the prison system as a contractor, because they have multiple different prisons and, different VAs across the state usually, and country. So if they don't need you where it is they have you in a certain part of your state or certain region, it's very easy for them to say, but we need you down here, the southwest part of whatever state you're in. So being flexible with that change, if you're down with that, that could be a pro for you. You'll see that I also list that as a con. Fewer responsibilities. When I was a prison psychologist, at the time I really welcomed a lot of responsibility. I welcomed the idea of having multiple different hats to wear, mainly because I get bored easily. Like, after a year on a job or two, I'm ready to make changes and be progressing or doing other things. And so that becomes a bit of a challenge. Mainly, and I took my jacket off because it was hot, mainly because when you think about having multiple different responsibilities as an employee, people tend to exploit that. You'd find yourself doing a lot more work than the average person that you work with. Not to say that my, fellow coworkers were lazy or anything. We had like one or two that were bad apples. But when you try to wear too many hats, your higher ups get real comfortable with you doing what would be their supervisory level type work. And there's no way for you to really step down, because then you look like you're slacking off, even though you kind of volunteered to take on these different roles. So it became a bit overwhelming for very little pay. I'm trading time for money as an employee, and so I was like, nah, this is not gonna work anymore. Let me try contracting. And so one of the benefits is when you contract, you are contracting your time for whatever it is task they give you, and usually it'll be a very set number of tasks. So I may need you to do just therapy with this group or this population. I may need you to do crisis. I may need you to do group therapy and individual therapy and crisis. Whatever it is, you have this very specific role that you play, and it's usually not on the level of the prison psychologist that they have hired on. For example, in the state of Washington, those are like your Psych 3s and your Psych 4s, which take on a very supervisory level role. They wear multiple hats. They do it all. They do all the testing. I don't have to do none of that. In this current contract, I'm even doing a lot less per se in comparison to my other contract I had this summer, where it is I was doing the crisis and the updates and the treatment plans and the individuals. I mean, it wasn't terribly hard work and it wasn't overwhelming. Here I just have one set task, which is to get them caught up with all of their administrative stuff around their treatment plans, which is fantastic for me because it's right up my alley. I don't have to spend no more than about 30 to 45 minutes with a client and do that set thing and then move on to the next one and then just knock it out. So it really just depends on what you like. That's a pro for me. So fewer responsibilities. Another pro, not becoming a part of office politics and blending into office culture, or avoiding it if the office culture is toxic altogether because you are not vested. That is a big pro for me. One of the differences I see with contracting is that I don't have to care about what's happening in the office. I don't care that Jane doesn't like, Paulina. I don't give a damn. I don't care if they don't like me. What matters to me is that I am representing myself in a professional manner. I am representing my parent company that is contracting with me in a professional manner, and I'm just getting the job that they have contracted me to do done. Like, nobody could say that I'm not doing my job. So yeah, you don't have to partake in the office politics, and I don't recommend it. If you find yourself getting rolled and sucked in, that's probably your best time for you to, either at the end of your contract, just don't extend it, or just speak with your recruiter and say, hey, I'm getting sucked into some stuff I didn't even ask for. I'm not even sure what's happening, what's going on. Is it possible to just go ahead and switch my contract? Nobody's going to sue you because you decided that this wasn't the best fit for you. Let's see, traveling and getting the lived experience. If you want to test drive a neighborhood, this is the best way to do it. Do it while getting paid and not having to pay rent for it, because they're going to pay housing expenses more than likely. So that's a pro. Testing out the neighborhood, seeing how well it is. For me, as a black female, traveling by myself in some of these areas, it can be a little bit intimidating. Sometimes you're like, I don't think I want to get out the car, because you don't see many people that look like you. You kind of have to feel out your neighborhood. One of the best things about contracting is that where your contractor company puts you up, you can say, hey, this is not a safe neighborhood for me. Can we find something else? Or I found something else, and they will arrange it. I hope that you have that type of relationship. I have a wonderful company that I work with. I know I've mentioned it before. I work with locum tenens, also known as AP contractors. Their travel team has been amazing. Shout out to Sammy. She's not going to see this, but amazing in setting me up in locations that I have my preference and whatever for in terms of safety and proximity to things. My other pro on here is the overall experience and diversity of experience that you get to showcase on your CV. For me, I got into contracting mainly because one, money. I got tired of I have 4 degrees. I'm talking about, 2 masters, a bachelor's, and a PhD. And I found myself working paycheck to paycheck as an employee. It was like the more that I make, the more taxes that come out. I mean, stuff wasn't making sense. And I had spent so much time being a graduate student. I didn't exactly know, like, when I started actually making real money, what that would look like. And so when I started making real money, and all of a sudden my taxes and expenses and everything, and I don't even live outside my means. I don't have much credit card bills or anything. I'm like, why am I still struggling? It dawned on me that I needed to be an independent worker, today in today's economy. So I, decided to become a contractor. Also, another video talking about the EPPP process for psychologists. Just getting a license alone takes time. Like, it just doesn't always happen that quickly. And so even though I'm done with my postdoc hours and I'm done, with everything that I had to be done with, and I'm in my licensing phase where it is I have to pass that national exam, which is a real pain in the ass. I have, in the meantime, been in career limbo, because a lot of the times in your local area, it's hard to find a position where it is you can work, where it is you're pre-licensed or just simply unlicensed. And so contracting across country, traveling as a contract psychologist, has allowed me to get out of that, W-2 rat race, paycheck to paycheck grind, and actually start, living and making significantly more money than I've ever made in my entire life, all while being unlicensed. No, I wouldn't stay there. Definitely the goal is to get licensed. That'll make things a lot easier. But definitely a pro is, you get to showcase all of this experience now on your CV. Now to the cons, and I'll try to make this quick because I don't want this to be too long a video. Adjusting to new places and new workspaces is a con. Every time I have to come out, it's like starting a whole new job all over again. So you have to get used to new people, used to new environments, used to, wherever it is you're living. It's a lot of getting used to and adjusting, and you have to be able to adjust quickly. Your agency will not send you out here a month in advance for you to settle in. It's very likely you'll be out here a day before you start, 2 days max. Where it is they put you up, and so you have about 2 days for you to adjust to your routine, your hotel, a new time zone. I mean, it's just a lot of adjusting. Some sites have unfriendlies. That is con number 2, and that is a big one. You have to understand that when we come in as a contractor, usually we're identified as contractors. So if let's say you work at a government agency, in my case prison system, you're usually wearing a different color ID badge where people can be like, contractor. So you stand out like a sore thumb. Even when it says folks know in your department know that you're coming in, they know that you're not going to be there forever. I mean, you'd hope that they would treat you with some warmth and some welcome, and a lot of them do. I've not run into anybody who's treated me poorly, let me say, except maybe one person that I could tell she's a little bit salty with me, but not treated me poorly. But you're gonna run into people who have a lack of respect, some jealousy. They might not like the fact that you're doing the exact same job, and they have this idea in their mind that you make 5 times what they make, not maybe double or triple. Either way, you make more than what they make, and they know it. You get to travel. You kind of have this, very freedom type of life that you live that they don't necessarily have. And so sometimes you get to see some of that. And sometimes you get some very insecure individuals. And this is even in my field, in the field of psychology. So just a bit of a heads up on that, in that you would run into folks who don't necessarily like that you are there. I would say if you run into those unfriendlies, as I like to call them, it's not a you problem. It is a them problem. And you don't have to make it a problem. One of the beautiful things about being a contractor is I'm just passing through. So if you absolutely have it out for me and you're bold enough to confront me about it, one of two things is going to happen. If they're kind of passive aggressive about it, or I could tell they're a little bit iffy, I'm just going to stay away from you. I really, like, I'm a lot older than I look. So I don't have time. I'm not truly vested here anyways. It doesn't matter if you like me or not. I'm here to do a job and I'm here to do it professionally. And usually it won't come from your supervisor. Your supervisor is usually very happy to see you, very happy to help you, because they interviewed you for this position anyways and gave the thumbs up for you to come on board. Usually it's not from them. It's going to be from folks who is your coworkers or some other supervisor way to piss over here that has nothing to do with you. You're going to run into these issues with. So yeah, it's easy to stay away from those folks because 9 out of 10 times you're not in direct line with them for anything. Another way would be if they're persistent, if they are microaggressive and they just keep coming at you with some, like really inappropriate stuff. Your best plan of action then is to stop that initially. Is just simply ask them to repeat what it is they said. So maybe they looked at you and they said, you seem smart for a black person. Now, this has never happened to me, but if somebody is bold enough to say some crap like that to you, especially if you're a person of color, and this is just an example, I'm so sorry, I didn't hear what you said. Could you repeat that? Because now you're putting it back on them to have to now face themselves and hear what they just said to you. 9 out of 10 times they'll be like, oh, nothing, never mind. Or if they're really bold enough, to say something, then you can ask them, did you say that to hurt me? Because now, they're having to really think and process. They're going to deny. Now, that's just too much. I mean, it just depends. If it's really extra, you're going to figure out, if you're a contract psychologist, trust and believe, you're going to know how it is to deal with those individuals on that level. Personally, like I said, I ran into the unfriendlies, the ones who seem to have an issue. You could just tell by their demeanor. I tend to just avoid them. I just avoid. I say hello and goodbye and I keep it moving. All right. I might have stayed on that one too long. Another con, there's no say in operations. Don't think you're going to come in and tell these folks how it is to change things, do things, what will work best or how you see fit. You might figure out a way to do stuff. If you figure out a better way to do it, maybe do it. Take the initiative. But if it's something outside of policy, just know you might get yourself in trouble. Whatever when it comes to duties as assigned, you ain't got to say, just do what the heck it is they ask you to do. Be flexible. Just don't be exploited, which brings me to that. You have the potential for exploitation. You might have a supervisor that might say, hey, we need you to stay overtime. Stay past your shift, or, can you come in on your off day? Which is bold because they can't do that with employees and they know it. But if you happen to run into that, especially the overtime one comes up a lot because for some reason, some of these folks do overtime, so they feel like you should do overtime. That's where I draw the line and let them know my contract prevents me from doing over my 40 hours. I'm happy to shift my time. So for example, let's say I work on Monday through Thursday, and anytime before Thursday they want me to stay overtime for something, I'm willing to be flexible enough to say, yeah, I can stay here for 2 more hours on Wednesday, but please know that I have to leave 2 hours early on Thursday at the end of my week because it needs to add up to 40. Personally, I don't do that because there is no benefit for me staying a 12-hour day over a 10-hour day, and then cutting my time short. I have to be in a real good mood or really just want to get off early the next day and look at that as a benefit. I would rather just do my 10-hour day, not do overtime, because overtime really should be paid at time and a half. There's no benefit for me staying overtime and cutting my day short. It would be a benefit for me if I was getting paid time and a half or double time. So those are things where I'm not really flexible. I just refer to my contract when it comes up. If it becomes an issue, I have a recruiter who is like a liaison who can handle all of that stuff for me. One of the benefits of contracting is you don't have to advocate for yourself. You can enlist the help of your your recruiter and say, hey, I'm having this problem. Do you feel like, can you see if this can be worked out? I've done that before. There was a problem. I let them know what the problem was. My recruiter, I don't ever talk directly to, staff about what my problem is because, why? They usually can squash that and handle it, and I pretend like I didn't even see it. So, yeah, I kid you not. Let's see. There are some things I think I did mention that I'll be flexible on. Cons. We were on cons. Oh, constant change. So I mentioned that constant change was a pro, but constant change can also be a con. If you don't like change, this will be a con for you. I don't particularly like change when it comes to tasks, but I get bored, so change can be good as well, so that it doesn't start to feel mundane. Another big con is leaving family behind. So coming out to a lot of these places, I have to leave my son. Granted, my son is an adult now. He's 18, and so not having my kid with me, I do miss him. He misses me, but I have to reframe it. I have to look at it as he's learning some skills of independence. He's doing grocery shopping. He is learning how it is to basically adult. He's learning to adult in my absence. And so I have to look at that as a positive. First time I came out, I had a lot of mom guilt, even though he was like 17. I had so much mom guilt. But he's learning a lot of new things as I'm away. Leaving significant others. You have a boyfriend, a girlfriend, a spouse. You tend to leave them behind as well while you're contracting. And also when you're traveling in between your contract to go see them, sometimes most of the time, your employer, your contract employer will not pay for those flights. So those flights can add up. I know a contractor who flies home every week. I can't do that. I'm not spending hundreds of dollars on a plane ticket. Granted, her points are adding up, but I'm not doing that. Once a month, if you're out in a 3-month, 6-month contract, once a month is appropriate. Either fly them out, you fly out, but definitely don't isolate yourself, see family. You don't get holiday, sick, vacation pay. That was one of the things I would mention up front now, which is, basically, even though you get higher pay, you don't get all of those benefits. So if you don't work, you don't get paid. You have to flex it. So if I am sick on Tuesday, I may be able to work that Friday to make up for that Tuesday, even though I'm on a Monday to Thursday schedule, if that makes sense. Or if I don't work the Friday, I don't get 4 days of pay. I get 3 days of pay. Now, that means you're going to miss out on a day's pay. And for some people, that can range from $800 a day to $1,600 a day, depending on, your profession, what you do, and what your contract pays. And so that's a huge chunk, and you feel that stuff. You feel it. You feel that stuff when it says you look at your paycheck, because you get used to seeing a nice big round number every week. And yeah, you miss a day and it's like, ouch, especially those holidays, Mondays. If you can do a Tuesday through Friday, do it, because a lot of these holidays fall on a Monday. So you have to self-manage your health insurance, your taxes, your life insurance, and other expenses. That would have been covered if you were an employee. Some people look at that as a con. I personally look at that as a pro. Mainly because, there's a lot of tax benefits that come with being a 1099, as opposed to a W-2 employee. Some contractors do get benefits that often come with a lower hourly rate if they're a W-2. But it's much greater if you can establish yourself as an LLC or a PLLC, and then ultimately set yourself up as an S-Corp, where it is the tax benefits are astronomical. So this is my just about 30-minute video on the pros and cons of contracting. I hope that it gives someone some insight into the contracting world, especially as a contract psychologist. I hope to talk more, about various different things, and share more videos on this topic as well. So thanks for joining me.